right, welcome to another episode of Panakal podcast for Geeks, the show about good friends hanging out, talking about the things we love. Our guest today is Connie Davey, whose last name I could not remember last week for the life of me. And you guys know my co-host, Andrew Sides. We're going to do something a little different today. Usually we go right into talking about the artists and their projects and all that, but we thought, back in the day when I was telling you guys about this before we went live, when I first started doing the show, at the end of every episode, I would my co-host and I would always talk about something new that we discovered or enjoyed during the week. And one time I talked about a Gundam. I was building Gundams back then. I remember my co-host one time talked about LaCroix. He actually discovered LaCroix that week, which is fucking weird. But that's how random it can be. So I thought we'd open up with that just to kind of get everybody comfortable just talking on camera. I can start if you want, or you can go first. I don't really care.
You can start. That's fine.
So
Yeah.
I was going to talk about, Andrew and I were talking about this Spider-Man cover a couple days back with this artist. I think his name is Kyle New. And I actually found it. I found the issue. So
nice.
This is the variant cover he did. It's hard to see. It's in this
Who
bag,
does,
but
who
it's
does
a
the
variant.
interiors on that?
Let's find out. It just came in today. But this cover is probably one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man covers right now. I mean, Todd McFarlane is still top tier. Here, out of the bag, you can actually see it better.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a solid cover, man. And I did a little bit of a deep dive on the artist. He's based out of Malaysia. The interiors are Brian Reber. Oh, that's a colorist. There are so many variant covers for this right now.
How many variant covers do they usually do per issue? Or was this like a big story thing or whatever that they decided to do a bunch?
This has got well over 20.
20? My God.
So, I don't know why. This is called Sinister War. Maybe it's that popular. I have not read it, to be honest with you. It doesn't show... Oh, here we go. Mark Bagley is a penciler. Nick Spencer is the writer. It's really big at top, and I just missed it. But yeah, there's a bunch of variant covers. It's all cover artists. So whatever. I mean, I didn't even realize this was part of a comic book. I saw the cover randomly on Twitter one day, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then I did a deep dive on this artist. It's Kaelngu. I think it's just New, Kale New. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name correctly, or his first name for that matter, but it's a cool cover. It's probably one of the best ones I've seen in a minute. So.
It's a really nice cover. Yeah, I remember when you shared with me. It's something else.
I found him while looking up. Have you read any of the White Knight, Batman White Knight, Sean Gordon Murphy? You'd know it if you've read it. He's kind of... Yeah, Joker convinces Gotham that Batman is the bad guy.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, I have a bunch of those issues, yeah.
So I really love how Murphy draws Batman. So I was doing a search for his art, and that's how I found this guy. So maybe...
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe they know each other.
Yeah, it might be.
I apologize if I keep coughing. I got a booster today, and it's really effing with all my sinuses right now, so...
cool.
I don't know whichever one of you guys wants to go next.
I'll go. I was going to talk about a comic book series I started rereading, but actually I downloaded this art app earlier this morning. After for some reason I got in my head the other day. I think it was because I've been rereading Color and Light here and there over lunch,
Gurney?
And I got to Gurney.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the gamut masking part, and I was like, God, surely someone has made an app of this thing. Because I used to have I made myself ages ago a Photoshop file that had a bunch of those things or whatever, and it works, but it's tied to Photoshop. So basically, if I can't open in Photoshop, then I'm SOL.
Right.
But no, yeah, it turns out someone did make an app for iPad and iPhone free. And the cool thing about it is not only can you adjust your gamut mask however you need to, right? It updates your values down below and stuff. You can export it out either as Procreate swatches or Adobe swatches.
What's that app called?
Nice.
It is called Masks.
That's it, masks.
Yeah. Yes. WEELMASKS. All strung together as one word. And it's free, and they've got a few different color wheel options. Nothing crazy. It's really just like a red, green, blue set, a red, yellow, blue set, like your traditional red, green, yellow, blue limited, which is like based more like the hue, saturation, luminance kind of color range kind of thing. But yeah, you can muck around in it,
So
and then you
Ben
can
said,
set different.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Ben is saying Coloris has an extension that is has a built-in gamut mask for Photoshop. It's good to know too.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is it portable? Because I have many a time where I'm just sketching on my iPad, and I'm like, man, I could really use something like this, or like I'm not near my computer and I don't feel like working on it or whatever. This is pretty much solved that for me, because now I can even have this at the easel with a quick little thing thrown up, and I'm good. Because I had used that Coloris plugin like 10 years ago or so, and I liked it at the time, but it's the same issue I had with my Photoshop file where it was tied to Photoshop, and I'm not always at my computer doing digital work.
Right.
Or if I'm doing digital work, I may be elsewhere. So wheel masks, I don't know if it's on Android. Not sure. If you have an Android, you may have to check, but I do know it's for iOS, for iPhone, and iPad.
Most of us have iPads, I think, if we try.
Yeah.
I finally got one, so yeah.
Are you using Procreate on there?
Yeah.
Nice. I've been using Affinity Photo on there a little bit too. It's not bad.
Oh, okay.
It's not as, I'm so used to Photoshop, and so I have this like hard I'm having a hard time like just saying Photoshop's fine, let's try this, but because I'm always like, I can do this in Photoshop, I'm just going to go back to Photoshop. So at some point I think I need to make the shift, because I'm tired of paying Adobe monthly. Some of us.
That's fair. I still have to sit down and just college try to like really sit down and figure out all the weirdness with Affinity and stuff that's different from Photoshop.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the layouts similar in ways, but it doesn't do. I do a lot of layer adjustments, and those are not working as well in Affinity for me.
Okay.
I think it's because I haven't quite sorted out how to do it the way I want to do it. In Photoshop, it's like second nature. I know how to do it. I know how to adjust. I have like a mindset on like what numbers I want to use to start, and then I tweak from there, right? Around a little bit. So
yeah. So Connie, what's your favorite thing, or what have you seen recently that you enjoy, or anything?
So I think my thing is I'm still going through it, but I started reading these books. They're called the Live Ship trilogy, and I had never heard of it before, but I really like pirate books, and like so this one it's got like pirates, and it's in this world where like these trader families, they put down like huge amounts of money for this special wizard wood ships, and once 3 people of the family like die on the ship becomes alive, and they get access to like these special like trading places. And anyways, there's pirates and like sea serpents, and I just started book 2 because it's a trilogy, and I'm really enjoying them so far. Yeah.
What's it called?
Set in novels?
Yeah, it's called Live Ship Traders. It's by Robin Hobb, I think.
Robin Hobb. Yeah,
that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think I've read something else by her a long time ago. It was like, I think it was like a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I liked it, but I hadn't followed her since, and I found those books, and I was like, oh, I like these.
That's cool. I have not read a pirate book in a long time.
Right? I don't think I've ever read a pirate book outside of Treasure Island.
Yeah, Treasure Island
and the Scar. Yeah.
I read the last time I read like a pirate type adventure was Forgotten Realms, when those characters all go on a ship, but that's about it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I didn't realize it, but the Disney movie, uh, it's one of the Pirates movies. It's called On Stranger Tides. That one is loosely based on a book, and so I read that book, and I thought that one was pretty good.
On Stranger Tides. I don't know that one
Hmm.
either. Well, okay. I'm gonna write that down too. Cool. All right. Well, that's three different things. That's the point there.
Yeah.
um, so now we can talk about Connie and her projects. So for starters, I read some of your bio. You said you started as an accountant, or you are an accountant.
Yeah, I'm still an accountant. Hmm.
Okay. And then you started doing art around 2020, you said?
Yeah, so I always like doodled, but I didn't really like finish stuff. I feel like art has always been like difficult for me. Like I didn't like I know a lot of people like they kind of feel their way through it, and that's always been really hard for me. Um And so when I finished school, I was actually thinking about getting my CPA license, and I
Mm.
got all the books for free. And when they came, it was like 20 pounds of books. It was this huge stack, and I started flipping through them, and I was like, no, no, I can't do this. And so I was like, well, I want to, yeah, I was like, I want to do something for me. And so I remembered, I think I had looked into it before, Smart School. And so I was like, okay, well, if I can stick to drawing every day for a month, I'll sign up for Mark's class. And so I did, and I ended up taking his class in spring of 2020.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
That's a
Yeah.
good first class.
Yeah, I did the figure drawing boot camp first. And then that one was also kind of difficult because you're really like hyper focused on figures, and so some people were moving on to his beginning illustration class in the fall. And I remember I messaged him and I was like, "Do you think I can take beginning illustration, or like do I have to do this some more?" And I think he was gone or he was busy or something, and he didn't answer me like in as registration open. And I was like, "Well, he's not going to stop me," and so I signed up for beginning illustration. And yeah, so I've been kind of working on and finishing stuff since then.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
think
How
I
is
first.
the
Go ahead,
Oh,
Andrew. I'm
go
sorry.
on.
You're fine.
I was gonna say, like, how's Mark's figure drawing boot camp? Is it like a lot of organizing and like drawing from your like trying to draw the figure from imagination, or is it a lot of like reference and then
Mm,
learning how to read the form as quickly as possible? Or
it's a lot of like gesture drawing, and we worked through a lot of the Barg
Mm,
drawings, the master studies. And I think I think moving on to the beginning illustration class was really good for me because I think it starts to get a little bit much when you're just doing figures, but it was also really good for me because he brought up a lot of things that I had never like thought about before, and like I wasn't like I didn't really think anything about like indication and stuff when you're doing those short, fast figure drawings. And so I think he really helped me.
That's
nice.
good.
I ran into that with like Watts Atelier stuff where on one module for a while and I'd be like, God, I was on this for a really long while. And then I move on to the next one. It's really not until you like start doing more of the advanced stuff that you like there's some things that earlier you know but don't like fully understand. But then once you see it how it's applied, it like clicks together. You're like, oh
Yeah.
right, okay. Yeah.
That stuff still boggles my
Yeah.
mind. Like my anatomy skills are not the best, and a lot of the stuff came from taking Scott's. That's why I was in that class with you. I mean, Connie and I were in there in the fall. I took Scott's character design class because I was like, let's see if you can actually create things. Like the first one I took, I think, was with Ben and Kurum. I was very like, it was just not. I mean, I did okay, but like the stuff I created in there, I was still like, not the best I
Mm,
could have done. I wasn't 100% satisfied with the results, and then I just kept taking the courses. So that you get better over time. Never 100% where you want to
yeah.
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, it's
um,
so funny that you say that because I know the last class I took was that one with Scott, and even now looking at some of the stuff I submitted in that class, it's like, oh, I could have done better.
I
So,
mean, that's the way we all think when we're done,
hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I saw all of us totally grew from week 1 to week 14. Like I looked at the early sketches to the finals, and I was like, man, these early sketches are janky. Like, but Scott wouldn't let me do my shapes until till I got the sketch right. You have to get your sketch right before you move forward. Yeah, so Ben and I went Scott's spring 2017. That's a long time ago. That's how long I've been taking Scott. So,
Wow. Are you doing this semester?
I'm just auditing this semester because of the new baby in the house. I don't have time to. I just don't have time to work as much, so I didn't want to put that pressure on myself. But by fall, once we kind of have everything in place, I'm hoping to be back.
Yeah.
I do miss it because it kept me like in. I'm still working on art, but the class keeps me a little bit more in check, and like I believe in the
Keeps
last
you like
semester,
a little more regimented.
Yeah, I mean, I finished like four. I believe it was 4 artifacts and two characters in the last one, and the one
wow.
before that I did about the same. I did 3 characters and like 2 artifacts or something. So it's all stuff for my own stuff. It's my own book, right? Like none of it's like random. I can use it everywhere. So I worked it into my Ancient Ones book too. So
Nice.
that's the only way I'm going to do that. Otherwise, it's pointless. I mean, it's not pointless. I didn't mean it. That sounds stupid to say out loud. I don't want to just draw for the sake of drawing. I want to draw so I can use it everywhere else. You know, that's the way my mindset is right now.
That's fair.
Yeah. But we were also asking you about conventions. You mentioned you've only done 1 convention. Do you plan on doing more?
I would really like to do more, and I don't even know if you could call it a convention. It was just that one pancakes and booze show, and I think you cut out, but I was telling Andrew, I sold 1 print to my coworker,
Yeah,
who I
that's
told
how
I
usually
was
it
gonna
goes.
be there. Yeah, so it was like, and it was outside, and so I'm like, I don't want to do that, but I'm working on this comic project, and there's a lot of like zine festivals, and so it's like I was thinking about trying one of those.
Are you gonna
Nice.
self-publish or
Yeah.
Kickstarter probably?
I don't know if Kickstarter, because I guess I don't have enough like confidence in it yet. But like I've been working on it for the past year after I left Scott's class,
Sure.
because I want to come back to Smart School. I was thinking about trying to come back in the fall, but I might push it off until spring. But I've been working on this comic project, and then I was also working on like fundamental like drawing skills. Like I did try Watts online, and I was going through some of those. And I also tried they have like an inking course now, and I tried some of those with the traditional like quill pens. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
How'd you like the quill pen? Because when I first started inking, I hated it. I still kind of hate it. I'm more of a brush person nowadays. But quill pen is like you look at it wrong and it decides to just wreck your day.
It's so funny. I actually do really like the quill pen. It was a brush pen. I still like the brush pen, but I think I like the quill pen more.
Okay. I don't think I've ever tried a quill pen. I did, I'm trained as a graphic designer, so when I had to do ink work for graphic design, I had what are they called?
Did you use repeatographs?
Yeah, the repeatographs where you like change the tips, and like sometimes you'd be just trying to ink like a letter, and the ink would just splash just outside of the line, and you're just staring at it like, I don't want to start this over, but you can mask it, but if you start it over, it looks more professional. So I learned very quickly to do the edges first and make sure they're dry, and then go in. And I hated every minute of that. I hated it so much. So
the repeatographs, God, I was learning how to ink way back in school. I was not good at all with the brush. I have a very heavy hand, so I had a lot of trouble adapting to that idea of like you can't press it down with the brush because there's nothing pressing against you. So if you press down, it's just going to go right to the ferrule. Yeah. And I had the next best thing was like the crow quill, because at least then I could do like line pressure and all that. But if you try and move like the grain or whatever with it, that's how you get splatters and stuff, and it can go south on you real quick. So I actually got like really into the repeatographs for a while because I didn't really know how to ink much better than that. And I was like, it's fine. But yeah, it is like those things are such a pain.
I mean, I just remember when my friend gave me a bunch of Micron pens, and I was like, holy crap. Like, where have these been? Like with the
Chucked
instructor
out all
that
the repeated graphs at once.
I did. I immediately, because the instructor we had was very particular. He wanted us to use those. I think he liked the idea that we had to like always refill the ink, and it had a very, very fine, like
That's just
it's
an
such a thin tip,
old
right?
person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was strict, and that's how I learned, and I hated it. And yeah, when I got microns, I was like, these are great. And painting was always, brush. I used to ink with brushes all day. I mean, it's just so much easier. Um, but again, once I started learning some digital stuff, I was just like, I
Yeah.
feel bad that I kind of abandoned the traditional stuff I was experimenting with, but at the same time, I was like, digital just felt good to me, and I just was fine with it. I don't know how to compare it to, like, my cousins would compare me doing that to, back in the day, they would say it was like my parents had me learning piano for a number of years, and I was okay at it, and I didn't hate it. But then one day my cousin gave me a guitar, not that one, and I just never looked back. Like that was it, right? I was just like, this is what I want to do, and that's how I felt with digital. Like I started on Photoshop like 3.5 or something, way
Oh my
back.
God.
Yeah, and I had to use
It's like right when they introduced layers.
yeah, it was just right when layers are coming, and I started with a mouse. It's before, like, you had pen tablets and stuff. It sucked.
Connie,
Oh,
are you working on your comic digitally, or are you working traditionally for it?
digitally. I was using Clip Studio Paint, and then I got the
Oh,
iPad
okay.
earlier this year, and I started using Procreate, and I really love it. So I've been
Nice.
using
Okay.
that.
I like
How do you
Procreate.
like how do you like making comics? Like I used to do them back in the day, and I've more or less sworn them off entirely
Sure.
for myself.
That's fair. I actually really like it. This has been like a really steep learning curve for me,
Mm,
and I've run into all kinds of things that like I guess I just didn't think about, which is good because I wanted to just dive in and start learning, but it's like one of the characters started to like slowly get off model as I like continued on pages, and I started flipping back, and I was like, "Oh no, like we got to go back and fix this."
oh
And
man.
yeah. So it's just little things like that where it's like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that." And but I really enjoy it. I don't know if I would enjoy it if I was like doing it for someone else. Like because it's my project, it's like I'm interested in it.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with it. Like if I were to do it again, it would be purely only for my own like interests. Like I wouldn't be doing it for anyone else. And I may not it would probably not even be a thing I would look to monetize. It would just be something just for me to play in. Because
I'm
Mhm.
I feel like at least with comics, like I did a web comic back in the day, and I did a bunch of like indie stuff, and the grind on those was so brutal, and the pay on it was so low that I think it just soured the whole thing commercially for me.
Mhm.
But I still like the idea of like doing them, and there's been one or two I've done just for like myself here or there, like within the past 10 years or so. But I want to say the last time I publicly showed a comic was like 12 something years ago. Like it's been an age.
I
Uh,
I think I've told you the story before, but my friend once asked me to do just an 8-panel comic book, and I got 2 panels in. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was 8 pages, and I got 2 panels in. And I was like, I remember messaging going, this is really tough. Like, because, like, I don't do comic books. I didn't know what to make it look like or how to, like, perfect it.
Yeah.
And I tried for a minute, and then I was just like, never again. And even with ancient ones, people are always like, hey, are you making this into a graphic novel or a comic book? And I'm like, no way. Like, somebody else wants to do it, I'll gladly pay you. But hey, no way in hell I'm touching that again. It's too much. It's too stressful for me. Um,
Yeah.
I got a question from viewer Connie about your username. Does it mean something special?
yeah, so I actually have been using it for a long time. When I think it was when I first got an Xbox and like I was trying to get like a username. And I don't even know why, but I think I was thinking of like butterflies and like moths, and I was like, oh, let me see if moth is taken, and it was. And so I was like, well, maybe it's not taken. Sorry, there's like a little bug. I was like, well, maybe it's not taken in like a different language. And I only know English really well, so I started looking at like maybe other names I could use. And in Esperanto is like I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like a
Oh,
universal language.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's moth, but in Esperanto.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
I
Nice.
mean, it's
Yeah.
better than some of the usernames you see out there. It's like Fred's mom, or like I've seen some janky Xbox
They get
usernames.
some real, yeah.
Some of them I'm like, how did
Well,
this guy get away with this name? Um, and then they're top tier. They're in there and they're killing you left and right. Like
Yeah.
trying to remember. There's something else we were talking about before we went live. Um, oh, you were talking about. So Andrew was talking about. Do you do any traditional work at all, Connie?
So I've been doing it in like practice, like the Watts exercises and stuff,
Sure.
but I haven't done like any like finished traditional pieces. I think I'd like to try, but I think I start to feel like intimidated, so I've been working on it with like doing little exercises, and then like the inking really helped me a lot
Hmm.
because it was like, any mistakes you make, you just have to live with it and like move on.
yeah.
So that's been really helpful. I had this idea to maybe do one of like a leopard and like some flowers and stuff because I really like doing animals.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I think I might try and work on that. And like, I think it would be cool to try and incorporate more traditional things because like once there is something about like, okay, you can't like just undo it. It's like you kind of have to work around it or
Yep.
live with it. There's something really cool about that.
That's
Yeah.
the yeah. That's the. I guess that's a good way to. It's the beauty of it and also the stress part of it.
Yeah.
'Cause, like I've learned to like sometimes I can paint over stuff, but sometimes you can't. Like, there's an artist friend of mine. His name's Tony Moy. Tony, I once asked him how he got really good at drawing anatomy, and he basically was saying he drew only with permanent marker.
Oh.
It's no pencil, like it's like all permanent marker. So it like forced you to like a little bit of like let's think before you put the line down, but also a little bit of like stop being afraid. This is down. It's down. You know.
That's like George Pratt has the way he teaches figure drawing is you have to use new pastel on toned paper. And the reason he uses that is because it's like, it's not an elegant drawing tool, so you really can only do like big
Yeah.
and he's always about like the big statement thing. So it's like really you can only do like big planes of light and shadow as a result. So you're not getting like these delicate drawings or anything, but it's also forcing you to kind of like stop and like really look at the figure and be like, okay, what's in shadow, what's in light, what's the gesture I can do? Like this thing can only do like two settings. It's like very fine point or like super wide. So what
Right.
what can I do for this for this like shoulder blade or back or whatever? Are you doing only the have you done only the charcoal and ink so far in Watts, or have you like done gouache or
Mostly charcoal and ink. I tried doing a little bit of gouache and I did like it. But I just haven't gone back to it yet. But I did like it a lot. I like it more than watercolor. I feel like watercolor is
watercolor's
like
so hard.
yeah.
Watercolor is not nice to you if you mess up.
Yeah.
No. Which is insane. Like this is something that I didn't really give any thought about until I heard like Jeff Watts talk about on one of his lectures where he was like he was like, I don't understand why everyone always flocks to watercolor as their beginning medium because it's easily the hardest painting medium. And I thought about this like, yeah, everyone kind of does, don't we? We always go to like watercolors the very first thing we try out, and then we're like, oh, this is terrible.
I think it's because it's just like portable. It doesn't. If it dries out, you can
That's
still
what it
use it.
is.
Right.
Mm.
Like even when it's dried out, it's not wasted. You can still use it. Um, and it's usually more affordable than the other mediums. It's usually cheaper. I'm gonna put
I
quotes
think,
on that.
yeah, I think that's what it is because like you can buy like a Crayola set of watercolors and be done with it. Like I think
Mhm.
I think Frank Frazetta used to do his color comps with like a Mickey Mouse watercolor set that he had knocking around that he
But would
got
he
from like the
admit to
dollar store or
that? That's
whatever.
the thing.
No, he did. Yeah, he or at least someone in his family did. Maybe Ellie did
All his
or
secrets
whatever.
came out when that guy died, man.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't he the one that was like, I don't use reference for anything. I know all this stuff. And then after he died, they found all this like reference. It's like, come on, man, use reference. I'm not embarrassed.
That was his mystique.
I guess. I mean, he was a bodybuilder. I expected him to know all the muscles, right? If you're a bodybuilder and you don't know muscles, I'd be like, you're doing it wrong. You're gonna hurt yourself. Um, I don't know. Like I remember when I first started my mentorships, I was told to learn all the muscles and stuff. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm memorizing all these muscles. It's just not gonna happen. But also, I come from like a background of like I read a lot of comic books, so in my head I just wanted to draw. Like I understand though, I understand the value of knowing all the muscles, so I'm not like a complete idiot. Um, but I just didn't want to memorize them all. I just wanted to draw, like show me the basic shapes, and that's one of the things I really liked about Scott's class because it was like, um, I liked, I liked artists like Humberto Ramos and like I mentioned Sean Gordon Murphy earlier and stuff like they're very exaggerated shapes and they know the basic anatomy, but the shapes are very. You guys, Humberto Ramos, he did X-Men back in the day with the big hands and the big feet, or like Max. If you ever read Max back in the day, or Spawn, McFarlane did this all day.
Actually, yeah, Connie, who's some of your like art influences, or people that you look to? They're like, man, I really like how they draw or paint.
Yeah, someone that it was actually I think it was Mark that introduced me to him, but Tomer Hanuka I really like.
Yeah.
Like the really flat graphic style that he has. I really love that. Goni Montez. I might be mispronouncing that.
No, that's it.
But,
Goni was one of the first artists that taught me how to work in my style.
Oh, really? Wow, that's cool.
I'll tell you a funny story in a minute.
Goni's a nice dude too. Yeah.
Trying to think of some more like Muka is one.
That dude was crazy, but crazy good
yeah.
too.
I feel kind of bad, but I forget his name. There's this one guy, and he did the like Le Chat Noir poster, like the cabaret poster, and the way he does cats, I really love that. I always think it's Henry Toulouse-Lautrec, but it's not. It's a different guy. I think his name is like Theodore or something, but I don't remember.
I know the paint. Yeah, I know the illustration you're talking about. I thought it was Henry Toulouse too.
I'm looking. I'm trying to look.
Yeah, well, you look it up. So yeah, so you like a lot of artists that are Art Nouveau kind of range where it's like very line heavy and like bold colors and like interesting color choices and stuff.
Yeah, like really bright. Like I feel like I kind of share that with Allen. Like he likes the bright colors. I like that too. Neon. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some other ones. I think I had a folder. Let me see.
Henry.
Now that I'm on
Hench?
Now that I'm on the spot, I don't remember.
Is it Henry Hench? Does that sound right?
That doesn't sound familiar.
I have I'm trying to look up cabaret drawings. Oh, you said with the cats and stuff?
Yeah, it's like I think it's literally called like Le Chat Noir poster. It's like the black cat poster.
I might just not be doing a good search. We'll have to figure this mystery out. Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec? That sound right?
That's the other one that we
he did the Moulin Rouge cover by the looks of it. He's got a lot of drawings. A lot of horses.
Yeah. Theophile Steinlin. I might be totally butchering that, but that's the Le Chat Noir artist.
Oh, okay. Wow,
yeah.
way off.
But he did a lot of cats, and all of his cats kind of have like that look to them. I really like that.
That's cool. Yeah, I was gonna say what Goni is I met Goni for the first time at my very first time I went to LuxCon. I believe it was the last time I was in Allentown, so 2015, 2016, I believe, something like that. And it was Goni Montez and Tommy Arnold were walking around together, and I just had this. I didn't even have an iPad, so that's how broke I was. But I had these prints, these little 5x7 cards with my. I was doing a lot of fan art back then, but it was in my style. So I was just like asking anyone I could for a portfolio review. And, I was a graphic designer turned illustrator. So I would start with that pitch, and then Goni and Tommy happened to be walking by. Tommy had given me a really good review earlier in the day. And his friend Goni. I'm gonna embarrass Goni for a second, but he was a graphic designer, so he brought him over to talk to me. Goni was super drunk, and
No,
he
oh,
looked
this
at the
story, yeah.
pieces, and he was just like, he like ripped me to shreds, man. He's like, this is garbage. This is not good. This is blah blah. And what he was seeing was like little things that were wrong with each piece, but he couldn't quite articulate that at the moment. And I just took it all right. I was just like, oh, thanks, cool, all right. And I just walked. I wasn't hurt or anything. I was just like, I wanted the reviews, right? So I made notes of everything. And then the next morning, he found me and he was just like, I want to apologize because I was really not in the right state of mind. So I gave you a bad review. Like, you're supposed to tell people what to fix, not just tell them what they did wrong, which is what he had unintentionally done. So I became friends with him over this, and over the next couple of weeks, I would get on calls with him every once in a while. He walked like, so the Night of Jupiter piece, which is my 4-armed alien floating through Jupiter, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
He helped me with that piece back in the day. The very first design I worked on with Goni, and then I refined it more with, if you guys know Sasha Jones, Sasha is the one who taught me to overlap and turn the bodies, because all my characters were basically like stained glass characters. That's the way the style was to me at that time. It was very like looking at a glyph. They were just like stiff, right? But he was like, if you give it some overlaps and curves, they'll look like they're moving through things. And I was like, okay, my like level of learning comes from so many different people just telling me. Like Andrew is in that list of people who just be like, do this instead of that. Like Ben Hill, who's watching, is my Morningstar piece. Ben is the one who helped me like with some of the asteroids and the layout on the ship. So I'm very open to reviews and help wherever I can get it. I'm aware of my limits, I guess, is my point. So
it's always good. Always good to like pick around wherever you can.
Well, it's like I've met artists where like I see it sometimes, and like I've seen it once or twice in Scott's class where he will give a review to somebody and you could tell they've already made up their mind on what they want to do. And then you kind of want to chime in and be like, yo, you paid money to be here. And he's telling you some good information. Just do what he'll tell you. But like, you don't have to do anything with this. This is just what I'm going to tell. This is my advice to you. And I feel like a lot of artists can't take the constructive criticism. It's easier on you if you can learn to just take it.
Yeah.
It's usually coming from a good place, so I don't remember where I was going with that, but
I think you're just wanting to tell the story about Goni.
Oh yeah, my whole point, Goni's a cool dude. I mean, I liked his work because he was doing stuff on Power Rangers back then. I think he's still doing Power Rangers things, but he was one of the first people who was like, I was very nervous coming into this industry because, like I said, I was a graphic designer turned illustrator. So like my wheelhouse was all like structured design work, front end development, and advertising. And he was the one who was like, there's only so many of us in this industry that are graphic designers turned illustrators. He was a graphic designer turned illustrator. And he's like, we got to keep going, man. He's like, people don't want us here because of who we are and what we do, but just keep doing your thing and just ignore, it's different, right? Like my work is different. I understand when people see it, they're like, I don't know what to do with this. But someone like Scott embraced it. That's what I love about Scott. The reason I took his class was he talked to me at Dragon Con back in the day. And he was like, just take my class. I can teach you so much. That's really all he said to me. And then we had a private conversation I'm not going to talk about, but that's what got me to take his course. So I feel like sometimes you need the right push. So, and I saw your work in class. So I saw Connie's growth over the 14 weeks, and you took all his advice, which is what you're supposed to do. So
thank you.
There's no back talk. I guess.
So when you were talking about that, I was like, I think I took all of his advice. Oh my God, what have I messed up?
Usually it's like if someone's really like digging in their heels in it, then it's not a half measure. It's usually something like, oh well, like I drew that nose that way because that's my style. And it's like, well, your style's wrong.
Yeah.
Like I understand it's your style, but people don't want nostrils like the size of their eyeballs on the face. It's just not appealing. Or it's like some crazy thing like that where like a weird hang up that they have fixated on, and any attempt to be like, hey, I know this is maybe the way you're doing it, but have you ever considered this, is met with like absolute like stalwart, like, no, I don't want to do it this way. It's
It's
only
like they're
this
being
way.
told they're wrong, and it really affects their.
Oh.
Like I remember when I
Yeah.
did Jupiter first, he had no head. Because in my story, I'd written him as this character that can have multiple heads that can just be changed. I thought that was a cool idea, but it was the more I spoke to people, people were like, "You need hands and faces because that's what people can relate to." It doesn't have to be a perfect face, and it doesn't have to be perfect hands. They just have to look like hands and faces, something that you can relate to. And people were always look at that piece. He had no head, so they'd be like, maybe. But once I put a head on him, I realized, dude, he started selling like crazy. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess I was wrong, and everybody else was right.
I think I remember it without a head too.
A
Or
lot of
like
people have it without a head.
I think you showed it to me before, like without a head, but I think by the time you had shown it to me, you already had the head.
Yeah.
But you had shown me another version earlier or whatever of
Yeah,
it.
because I thought it'd be a cool, like, headless horseman type
Yeah.
character, but then it just couldn't, like, sell it, like, oh, yeah, so Nelson said, I love it without the head. Yeah, so Nelson, I think, has one of mine without the head. So there's a good question for Nelson. What fantasy genre world influence do you gravitate towards?
I really gravitate towards like Bronze Age kind of stuff. I know I said like I really like pirate stuff earlier, but I really
Sure.
also like Bronze Age and like sword and sorcery. Like I really like the world of like the Conan stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I really there's something so appealing about that to me, and I feel like there's not a lot of it. So
There really isn't, which is surprising. Like Al and I have been doing some stuff in the background, and Conan was one of the things I was researching to see if it was like public domain or not, which
It's a weird thing.
gray area, maybe.
Yeah.
But one of the things I was like, oh, like, is there any other sword and sorcery stuff? And the answer is like, no. Like, you have Conan, then there was like a long period of just nothing, and then like around the 60s, 70s is when finally like other people were like, ooh, Conan the Barbarian, let's do other sword and sorcery stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where it started to like really kind of come out. But like there's like this weird gap between like when Conan Barbarian was published was like early 1900s to like 1930-ish, I think, is like when the very last story was made. And then there's like 2 decades of just not really anything else taking it by that storm. And then by the 60s, it started to crop up a little bit. And I wonder if that's like, maybe it was like tied to cinema around the same age where
sure, people want more,
cheap
right?
to do. Yeah.
That is a good, man. I remember the first time I read Conan I told you my cousin had all the old King Conans and Conan the Barbarian My cousin collected all the Conan books. He has like Conan #1 in all the different series, and they took me. I remember I watched the Schwarzenegger flick with them. I was way too young to be watching that. That movie scared the crap out of me. Which one's when that dude turned into a giant snake? I was like,
That's the first one, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I don't need to be watching this. But I still want to watch the second one with them too. And I remember that pig dude scared me more than anything in the mirror room. I was like, I saw that guy. I was like, nope, don't want any of this. But that question reminded me, like, I always liked, I think a little bit of my sci-fi writing comes from this stuff. Like, I don't know what you call them. They were like very short books. They were probably like 100 pages long. They were like the sci-fi authors would just crank them out, right? Like there's one called Star Swarm. It's basic. It's just regular sci-fi. It's just basically they discover a planet. The planet has some abilities. They try to like farm it, and it just never really has like those books never had like an ending. Like this is how it ends, and everybody dies, or they got off the planet, or nothing. They just left it open ended, and there were like hundreds of books like this, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like
those cheap novella kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't know what they're called, but Conan was like in that line. You'd have these like small, quick like books,
so those were originally made as short stories for magazines, actually.
Sure, that makes sense. And then they turned
Yeah,
into
like they
books,
were.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like Lovecraft, a lot of that stuff was, excuse me, a lot of that stuff was done that way. Conan the Barbarian was done that way. I think Edgar Allan Poe, a lot of his stories were produced that way as well. I may be misremembering that. But yeah, like you'd have a lot of those where they would produce like basically a chapter. It was almost like a Shonen Jump kind of thing,
Yeah,
but for
that's
like,
a good way to
but for
describe
like,
it.
yeah, but for like old timey, like old timey stories, or whatever, where you would get like a chapter a week or a month or however often the magazine came out, and then eventually the guy would be like, I made enough of these, I'll just collect it into a little book or whatever,
And sometimes they made like notes,
and then
like so.
eventually that would get to be an even larger thing where it's like, here's collected stories of Conan.
Yeah, I mean, you can get the collected stories of Conan right now on your Kindle for like $2 on Amazon, something like
Oh,
this, dirt
nice.
cheap. Um, but like the book I mentioned, Starstorm, is one of these examples of like just wild sci-fi. They find a planet, there's something on there called a Starstorm, and then at one point you're like, oh, they're studying these things, and at some point they throw centaurs in, and you're like, what the hell is happening right now? But you're still invested in it, so you're like, I want to see where this goes. And they have their abilities. They're from that planet, so they know the planet better than the humans that showed up. But like books like that, where I would just eat those up, and I'd read tons of those. I mean, I have a bunch in the garage still. I'm hard pressed to get rid of them because I know some I know are worth a lot of money, and some are just still like reading them. You know, what's
So,
the
Connie, were you more into like the sword and sorcery stuff versus like high fantasy thing, like Lord of the Rings, or like what, like where?
Yeah, I think it appeals to me more. Like I do still like Lord of the Rings and like Game of Thrones, like and The Witcher. Like I guess those would all be considered high fantasy. But I don't know what it is. I guess it's just like maybe because it's different and there's just not enough of it. But it's like I really like
Yeah,
that kind of universe.
I always like it. I think I'm in the same boat as you. Like I much prefer something like Conan versus something like Lord of the Rings. Like Lord of the Rings, it's fine, but I think because I've seen so many iterations of that through various different things, like my brain's a little tired about it with it. So I see something like Conan, I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And I
yeah,
like a lot of like the weirdness that comes out in something like that, where there's enough things that kind of seem like, okay, like this is like the Hyperia stuff, like, okay, it's like supposed to be Europe, like maybe Eastern Europe or whatever, or it's like an older age of that kind of thing. And then there's like something that's thrown like totally out of left field or whatever. Like, Tower. I always go. Alan's heard me say Tower of the Elephant like 5 times within the past 2 weeks now at this point. But that's like one of my favorite stories because in that, like Conan the Barbarian stumbles across a fucking alien.
Yeah.
right.
He doesn't know what to make of it. He's just like this weird fucking thing that you at least hear it, like you're hearing this like creature talk, and he's talking about like, oh, I traveled across the stars and we came to this land like ages ago and stuff. You realize like, holy shit, like Conan ran into an alien.
Right. They don't outright say it though, right?
No, they never outright say it. It's just it's like total inference that you're like, oh, okay, this is weird. And even at the end of it, Conan the Barbarian's like he's like, I don't know what that was about, but I killed it.
Right. That's the thing I liked about those books. You're like, oh, there's a wizard in a glass castle.
Really doesn't. He's like shoot first, ask questions later on a lot of this. He's like, I don't want to
Yeah,
understand it.
he's
I
a
just know it needs to
barbarian,
get
dude.
killed. Yeah.
I always wondered if like, um, I'm trying to remember how early on D&D was created, but I always wonder if Gygax was like influenced. He had to have been influenced by a lot of these types of books, especially Conan, because Conan has like all the characters that you would play in a campaign. Conan has in there. Like, there's the barbarian. There's definitely a wizard. There are rogues, and then there are like warlocks and sorcerers, and there's an alien. Clearly, I don't remember if elves show up or not, but I haven't read those in a minute. So
Thinking about that now, it's like kind of like D&D is basically you have a Conan the Barbarian party running around in like Lord of the Rings fantasy.
correct.
And that
Yeah,
incongruous like at work,
that's
where it's like
exactly
everyone's like the world is trying to be like high fantasy kind of thing, and then you have all these like grubby like little mudslinging wretches running around like just trying to get coin and like mucking everything up for everyone.
people are just trying to have a drink, and you're over there destroying things. pretty much.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna feel like I have to go read some Conan books later. Marvel, I think, owns them all. Comic books.
Yeah, so
Oh,
they got the license back.
Mhm.
Dark Horse used to have it, and then something weird happened. Like it was around the time when Disney bought uh, Marvel, but something happened where they were able to wrest the license back
Of
because they
course.
don't own it. Like it's still owned by like Howard Estate or whatever,
Okay.
kind of thing. But like yeah, like Dark Horse had a license of it, and then it went back to Marvel. Like Marvel used to do it originally with John Buscema and all that, and then went to Dark Horse, went back to them, and now it's them. And it sounds like they may want to do a movie. I don't know. That was in
I
development hell for a
mean,
while.
if they do enough, because they did the one version of the movie with Jason Momoa, and I was like, eh,
The last one, Jason Momoa, though, was around the time when Dark Horse still had the license for it.
that makes
And
sense.
I think now that Disney has the license of it again, they're looking to seeing how to make a movie of it. But
Dude, but you got to make it
it's all
like the cartoon. Remember, he had like the wizard sidekick who would always make the carpet float. Have you guys seen the cartoon?
oh
mm-mm.
yeah,
Oh, dude, I used to watch that all the time. You should look up just a trailer for
it's
it. I'm sure it doesn't look that
old
good right
80s
now.
fare.
But he had like a team. Like it was kind of like any 80s cartoon, or it was a 90s cartoon. So like he wouldn't just go on an adventure by himself. He had his friends, and his one friend was a wizard who'd always make the carpet a flying carpet. That was his thing. But it'd be cool if they did that, or like the raid party they had in the second movie. He had like a wizard and a rogue and a warrior, and then a princess, right? Or who could easily be an elf.
An elf princess.
It
Yeah.
just fits, like it just goes hand in hand. But I was thinking when you said the Conan stuff, I was thinking about stuff like a couple weeks back I was trying to explain um, John Carter of Mars. If
Oh
you've
yeah.
ever, and like my cousins and I were talking about this, and I was like, think about how bananas it is that this dude, like, he wrote it at a time where nobody even knows what the hell's happening on Mars, right? So he's like, there's alien. Matter of fact, my Jupiter character is influenced. Everyone always thinks it's Destiny stuff, but he's actually influenced a lot by the aliens from John Carter of Mars. I read that book way before high school, and I loved it, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
as an adult, I was like researching. I'm like, these guys had no idea what's on Mars, but he was just like, what if there's aliens? There's a whole civilization there, and then he thought about things like you get to Mars and you're stronger because on Earth, the gravity's different, right? But it's like you're 10 times stronger on Mars. So I'm just like, that's cool. If you haven't read John Carter of Mars, I highly suggest you read it. It's a fantastic fucking book.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. I've seen the movie a long time ago, but
That movie was not that bad. It was just marketed poorly.
yeah, and I think I was reading that Star Wars kind of took the limelight from it. So it's like it kind of
Pretty much.
came
Maybe, yeah.
too little, too late.
There's a whole
Yeah,
thing
'cause,
about how
like
they put out an ad for it, a trailer for it, and they could have made it better. And then instead of calling it, they should have just named it something else. But they called it John Carter of Mars still, and people watching are like, I don't know what the hell that is.
no, you know what happened? So it was originally gonna be John Carter Mars, which I don't know if they had any other misgivings, but you know what else also came around at that time was Robert Zemeckis' Mars Needs Moms. Do you remember that animated film?
Oh, mm-hmm.
Oh my lord!
And
Yeah,
that was also a Disney thing. Like Disney produced that or whatever, and it bombed so horribly that the marketing team at Disney said, "Well, clearly, it was the Mars part of it. We have to remove Mars from mention on our John Carter Mars movie." But then
quality.
you kind of remove that, and you're kind of like, "Oh, okay, who's John Carter? I don't care. I don't know who
Yeah.
this is."
Exactly.
At
You're like
least
John
you have
Carter. This guy means.
John Carter of Mars, then at least like you have either people that are like vaguely aware of what that is, like maybe they heard it somewhere before, or you're kind of going like, oh, what does that mean? Like, why is he of Mars?
Right.
There's at least like some mystique to it, but like, yeah, they just decided like, oh no, we're just going to remove it entirely. And I do know like that movie in general was in development hell for ages. Like I know, Ian McCaig, the concept artist, he worked on 4 different versions of that movie under 4 different studios.
Dang.
Wow.
And each time he had to do like 4, like, because they were all different studios, he had to do different concepts for each of the same things over and over again. So like I think he had to redesign the Tharks like 4 separate times.
That's, I mean, one hand you're like, hey, you got paid, but on the other hand you're like, I don't want to do that.
No, you know, I imagine it's frustrating about it. It's kind of like, at some point he must have been like, I had a really good version of this and I can't use it now because it's like an
It's
older
owned by the
iteration or
studio.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Did McKeag also work on the Darth Maul designs?
Yeah, he designed Darth Maul and the Queen Amidala costume, like the
Right.
iconic one with the lights in the dress and everything.
It's fantastic.
I saw in your portfolio, Connie, that you had some Morrowind sketches that you did. Are you a big Morrowind fan?
Yes. Are you talking about the concept art stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's actually like a Discord of people making mods for Morrowind and Skyrim and Oblivion, the Elder
Okay.
Scrolls game. And so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, so I thought I might be interested in concept art, so I jumped in there, and they actually have like working concept artists will jump in and like say like, okay, well, let's have you work on this prompt for this mod, and they
Oh,
kind of help
nice.
you through it. Yeah, so that's what those are from, and I did enjoy it, but I don't know. I think I'm more interested in the comics and illustration, so I don't know if I'll go back to that. But yeah, and then on my main page, there's a Morrowind like fan picture I did for the 20th anniversary. They had like a fan magazine that they did, and so I got that in there.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite Elder Scrolls game. It's
Me
easily
too.
the weirdest. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think especially because it's weird. It's like Oblivion and Skyrim are also fun, but they're kind of like the traditional like fantasy setting, and Morrowind was just so alien. It's like you're dropped in the middle of this what are they called? You're dropped on that
It's
island.
like a swamp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan, have you ever played Morrowind at all?
No.
Have you
This
done
is,
any of the Elder Scroll games actually?
I actually own one. My cousin gave it to me. I just never played it.
So yeah,
I have no idea why I never played it. Just
Connie
time.
pretty much summed it up. So like Oblivion is like a fantasy one out of the more recent ones. And Skyrim is more like it's set in like supposed to be like the north of
Skyrim is
the
the one that I
country.
own.
Yeah,
Is
I was gonna say
the
Skyrim's the one that had like 57 releases at this point. Like it runs on everything. It runs on a person's pacemaker or something. It's like it's like the Doom, where it's like, you can have a Doom running on an EKG monitor, and you're like, oh my god, it runs Doom. Skyrim's getting to be like that now, but all of like, and I know a lot of people have played in like Skyrim because that's the one that has like dragons and stuff in it and cool, all things like that.
right?
Morrowind basically takes place in a swamp. Uh, Weird animals are in it. There's like stilt strider things. There's these bat creature kind of things. You basically, I distinctly remember like starting the game. Later games are a little more handholdy with it. The When you start Morrowind, it more or less asks for your name and race, and then just kicks you out of the boat and is like, "Get out of here." And I remember like I almost turned around like immediately, and I saw someone just fall from the sky and die.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And it's so much weird stuff like that within Morrowind. It's an odd game. I kind of wish like more open world games were like that, like just the really weird world building aspect of it, instead of like kind of doing the usual stuff that's seen more or less.
Yeah.
I should get into, like, I was talking to my friend about playing Elden Ring, but other people are like, it's super tough. I was like, I just want to kind of explore the world and see some of the lore behind it, but I don't think I'd survive long enough to get that far. So
It's a beautiful game. Yeah, I tried that one, and I think I was telling someone I didn't make it past like the first boss or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, you mean so and so?" And I was like, "No, I don't even think I got that far." And I guess I didn't even make it like out of the tutorial like section. This is
Oh
really
man,
hard. It is really hard.
Well, I
yeah.
guess I don't know
Uh,
if I'll be playing that.
you know what the thing about, like, so I got up. I actually need to go back to the game at some point because I just stopped playing it. I got busy with things, but I got up to the second area. So not that far in the game, but like the thing with Elden Ring, and this is with all the From Software stuff, is like there's so much lore to it, but none of it is said, like none of it's spelt out on the surface. It's a lot of like inference and just connecting dots between like this person said A, this person said B, and this person said C, and I just saw this thing over here of this painting that kind of reminds me of these three things that people said, and I can deduce that by talking to this other person. And oh no, now I have the whole picture of this lore, this one particular character now. Instead of like finding something
Yeah,
like
I feel like I would
In
miss all
Skyrim or
that.
whatever, I kind of do. Like, there's been a lot of things like I had to like scroll back through on like a wiki just to see, um, like
Yeah,
like the first boss you run into Elden Ring, his name is like Godric the Grafted. You're like, huh, that's weird. Why is he called that? And they make some inference of it. Unless you like really dig around, you don't really realize it. But basically, like he takes like body parts of like enemies he's killed and stuff, and he grafts them to his body in an attempt to be like more godlike because he comes from like deities and he's like half god, but he's like an impure kind
sure.
of form of that. So he
That's
has
just
like this
weird.
obsession. Yeah, he has like this obsession with like perfection and like trying to be like better than he is, and he does it through this like grotesque way of it. But
Oh.
all you would get in the game is like he's called Godric the Grafted. You hear something about like you hear some people be like, "Oh, he's fucking shit," like he's nothing, and then you see him, you're like, "He's a weird looking dude. What's he about?"
Right.
All the other stuff is like you could easily go right past
I mean, that's the kind of stuff well, we'll see. I'm just looking for like world
it.
building ideas, basically. Like I play games like that, I get different ideas in my head, and then somehow it may or may not influence my writing or my art.
a, a game like that is like I feel like for me it's the same way as like Halo was, where I was really interested in the world.
Yeah.
At least with Halo, I was interested in the world, but I did not care about the game at all. Like I was like, I don't want
I
to play this
mean,
game at all. Give me like the Halo 3 art book. That's all I want.
right. And when I first played
Yeah.
Halo, the first Halo, I remember talking to my friends. I was like, "Oh, this is a Ring World. This is like Ring World. It's exactly like Larry Niven's Ring World." And everybody's like, "What the fuck is this dude talking about?" Like nobody's
Oh
ever read it.
no.
And I was just like, "Okay, fine." But you could see all their influences. Halo has really good. I have got a lore book on it. And it's really there's a lot of lore. And it's just
Yeah.
like same thing with like Mass Effect or even so Destiny. I collect all the grimoires, and they're like the game is cool, and it's a little weird lately. It's not as cool as it used to be because I think they're trying too hard to please everybody. But the grimoires have all these like little scriptures and like character. You learn more about the characters if you actually take the time to read, and I love that aspect of it. But like Andrew was saying, it'd be nice if the game told you the stuff too, right? Because you're like, I'm playing the game right now. I'm seeing this character right now. Can you just tell me why he's called the God Killer? I just don't make me assume it, right? Or whatever name
Yeah.
Mhm.
they've got. We're a little bit over time, so trying to decide if there's something else that we want to talk about before I pass out. I can feel this booster kicking in finally. I was telling you guys earlier, I wasn't gonna go get it because in my head I thought I had enough shots in me already for vaccinations, but since we're doing all these shows, a lot of us are still, even at C2E2, I would say the artists were all masked up and the people really weren't, which every little bit helps, right? So we were, I think nobody got sick after C2E2, which is a first. So pretty much every show we've done up until this last one, one or two of us have gotten sick, and whether it's either a flu or COVID. So
Yeah. Actually, like you're in Austin, Connie. Are there a lot of art conventions? I know there's like what is it, Dallas Fan Expo over in Dallas. But I know like
yeah,
there's a lot of like game studios in Austin. So is there a pretty decent art scene as a result?
I've been looking into it, and there's not a lot of cons. There is an art scene, but I feel like a lot of it is more focused on like fine art or gallery art.
Right.
Mm.
We do have some studios. I actually joined this group through Meetup. It's like Austin Sketch Group, and I know some people in their work professionally. But I don't feel it's as big as like I used to live in Seattle, and there was quite a few more things over there, like Emerald City, Comic Con,
Mm.
and there is this thing focused specifically on indie comics called Short Run, and it's like we don't really have a lot of stuff like that. But
That's
Are you,
surprising because like Gearbox, I think, is over there. Retro Game Studios is
no,
there.
Gearbox is in Plano or
Oh, they're in Plano. Okay.
near Plano. I can't remember what the area is called. Because I've been to the Gearbox Studios out there. My cousins
Oh,
live in
gotcha.
Plano. Um,
Okay.
I know which one you're thinking of though in Austin. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. Connie, are you gonna do IX?
I might not this year, but I've been trying to see if maybe I can fit it in. But if not this year, next year for sure.
Gotcha. I think that's a good place to show like indie art. Like something
Hmm.
new. Comic Cons, I feel like is a harder place to show that. It's like the issue I like my work has as Comic Cons. It's just too different. And that's just for
It
any of them.
really
That's what
needs to
I
be
think.
like, it really needs to be like
Specific.
recognizable IP stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
if you do like Lux kind of think is a good place to start because it's very low pressure. But you're really just there with a bunch of your friends showing off your work. So
Yeah, it was so much fun when I went last year.
yeah, I mean, I had enjoyed setting up. I hated taking everything down because I had all those walls, and then I had lent walls to Tawny too, so it took a minute to break down. I like Tawny and I think were the last two left in that hall at the end of the show because it took that
Oh man.
the breakdown took a minute, right? Because it's like you got to take the walls down, you got to wheel it all to the car. I mean, I
Was
had
that your
help.
first time? Was that your first time at a LuxCon, Connie, last year, or?
Yeah, it was really nice. It was because a lot of these people I'd only known online, like Alan included, and it was really nice to see everybody and meet people for the first time. I bought a poos from
Oh,
Tyler.
nice. Yeah.
I missed out
So
on grabbing one of those. I got the coasters from her. I She wanted a playmat, so I was like, go ahead and just take whichever one you want. And then later she was like, go ahead and take something off the table. And my kid likes playing with coasters because she's weird. So I was like, got her these coasters. But next time I'll definitely make sure I jump on one of those sculpts first because she had like 20 of them, I think, right, or something.
I think
Dude, they
so.
were
Yeah.
they were gone like this, Andrew. Like anyone who knew Tyler was like there
Oh
snagging them.
man.
I was still trying to get finished setup, so I just was zoning out, not paying attention. Setup and breakdown. Setup always stresses me out because I'm always like tweaking and not tweaking. Just like yeah, I use the right word. Tweaking all my setup over and over. I'm always like, this is not perfect. Everything else doesn't exist in the room until it's done.
Mhm.
That's just my mindset for shows. So
Yeah.
well, all right. Well, we are over time, so I'm gonna rein us back in and
All right.
get this to stop because I
Uh,
hear my kid too.
Connie, where can we find you online? I know your Instagram is Chthonic, Connie. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm gonna try to be more active because I want to try and start posting the comic that I'm making, and so I'm gonna try to be more active because I've really neglected social media. Um,
We all do.
That's her.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
So
it's like I
you
don't.
also you were telling me you coded your own website, right? I used to code.
Yeah,
I was telling Connie, I was like, I never want to code a website again. I'm like done. Like you do
yeah, I
one
wanted.
line of
I,
code wrong and it's all broken.
Yeah, I wanted to learn. And there used to be those little websites you would come across like Angel Fire and GeoCities and
Oh
stuff.
God, Angel Fire, yeah.
So, so this one is hosted by NeoCities, and it's kind of the same idea. So a lot of people with these websites, they kind of make their own, and it's like a lot of the old style like HTML coding, and like I just really like the look of it. So yeah,
No, it's. I
nice.
mean, it's if you enjoy it, it's fun. I used to do it for so many years when Squarespace came out. I was just like, cool, man.
Yeah, jumped and didn't look
You
back,
guys do all
right?
the work for me. That's what was. I mean, even when I worked for corporations, when Squarespace came out at the tail end, right as I was about to be like, I got let go with a bunch of developers, but it was on the cusp of that, and I remember talking to my manager at the time saying we should just use Squarespace to make our websites. It's right there, like it's better now than it was then. But yeah, I mean, hard coding stuff, I can't code anymore these days. I probably could if I was someone put a gun to my head, but cool.
There's probably some stuff that would come back, but
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I can still read code for the most part, but I'm not. I used to be able to look at it and be like, "There's the part that's wrong." Now it would take me forever.
Do you only have the Instagram and your website, or is there anywhere else that we can follow you?
Alan found out I had forgotten about it. I do have a Twitter, but I have not used it, and it's kind of like a dumpster fire over there. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't really have a lot of posts on Twitter, but she does have a Twitter account.
And you have a coffee account, it looks like, too, or you have a coffee page as well, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that one I'm gonna try to. That one's kind of blank right now because I started it not too long ago, but I'm gonna try to post more stuff on there.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
cool.
We'll definitely drop all the links under this video once it's live.
Yeah.
And then yeah, that's really. Thanks for being on. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank
Monday
you so
night.
much.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It was a lot of fun.
Not stressful, I hope.
No.
Well, we'll definitely probably have a bunch of repeating people on some point. I want to do an episode of some of the Rusty people. There's a couple of you in here I've interviewed, so cool. All right, well, give me a second to take us offline. Our next guest is not till May, unless we get somebody to fill the gap in between.
Okay. Or we could always do it.
Probably just
bullshit.
be you and me.
Yeah. Too, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do it on 3D. That might be fun for people.
That'd be interesting to talk.
Yeah. So otherwise, our next guest will be Stephanie Cook, and she's on May 16th. We really should try to get a weekly thing in here. So give me a second to take us offline.
Well, hold on. Alan, where can we find you online?
I keep forgetting I got to plug myself. HO1s.net is my website, and then all my socials is AllenPanakal Art, except TikTok, because somebody's still squatting on my name. It's just AllenPanakal on there.
Oh, goodness.
One would hope at some point they'd give me my name on there, because I have a bunch of videos, and this guy has 0. So.
Oh, man. And I am always A-Sides Art, pretty much everywhere. Or if you just Google Andrew Sides Illustration, either or, it'll come up.
There you go. Yeah, that's the one thing I did notice, Connie. You need to put some of your socials on your website too.
Yeah.
Solid. Point him at that. I actually really like your background because it reminds me of old school Saved by the Bell.
Thank you. I made it. I made it because I couldn't find one that I liked.
Yeah. Oh, it's cool. It has a very 80s vibe to it, and I love it. So, all right, guys. Thanks for everyone who was watching. Thanks for everyone who asked questions, including Nelson, who's always watching. I appreciate you, bro. I'm gonna take us offline.